Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. Before I hop in, I'm going to say a little prayer. You're welcome. You're welcome to join in. You're welcome to modify the words or not. So I pay my respects and obeisances to the Supreme, who I honor as Mother, Father, God. I pay my respects to all the masters, especially Ramana Maharshi, especially my teacher, Bruno Gröning. Ask for their grace and their blessing for this video and for everyone who drops by it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Prayer, what an interesting thing. Many people think prayer, ooh, yuck, that's Christian. Well, Christians do pray, but actually prayer is an integral part of traditional Advaita Vedanta. Swami Dhyanananda, who was well, first of all, Swami Dhyanananda is considered one of the greatest teachers of Advaita Vedanta, traditional Advaita Vedanta in the 20th and 21st century. He said, pray before you do any activity and every activity. And then it's a way to bring spirituality, integrate spirituality into every aspect of your life. Once again, one of the great Advaita Vedanta teachers of the 20th century said, pray before every activity. That sanctifies life and it brings God into everything we do. So, and it feels good. And in my experience, it helps. It helps everything just flow. So I felt very inspired to do something I normally don't do. Normally on this channel, I just teach the difference between traditional Advaita Vedanta and modern bullshit non-duality. But today, I want to talk a little bit more about the process of recovering and what I've discovered for myself. And it comes down to something very beautiful that was said at the end of the last video I made. It wasn't said by me. I'm not bragging. One of the regulars here said, enjoy the Lila, but don't cling to it. So Lila is a Vedic concept that life is a divine play or sport or game. Now this, first of all, just that one concept can be life-changing because, of course, Neo-Advaita teaches that life is a meaningless illusion. So in the process of recovering from that nonsense, I've had to find for myself a new paradigm for what is life, because I took on this horrible paradigm that life was a meaningless illusion. It was very harmful, very disorienting, and very dysfunctional. And hence you have the phenomenon of people having full-on psychotic breaks, of feeling suicidal, and actually killing themselves within Neo-Advaita. We don't know how widespread it is, but it is happening. The most famous Neo-Advaita teacher on the planet has had 3 people kill themselves at their centers and a 4th person attempt. And that's just the ones that have been, that those of us who are keeping track of such things, are aware of. So these delusional ideas are not just delusional ideas. They have real impact and real negative effect. And so yesterday, one of my regulars here, her name's Marion, at the end of the talk, she said, enjoy the Lila, but don't cling to it. So there's 2 parts so there's kind of 3 parts. 1 is enjoyment, 2 is the concept of Lila, and 3, not clinging. So first and foremost, relearning how to enjoy life has been a process for me because of Neo-Advaita, and I've talked about this many times. Neo-Advaita turns you away from life. And so I had to go through this process of literally relearning how to enjoy life in a healthy manner. The second part, Lila, is to come up with a new view of life, to see life as a sacred divine process, which is what traditional Advaita does. To really take that to heart, that life is a blessing, that life is meaningful, and not just meaningful and a blessing, but it's a sacred process. Whereas Neo-Advaita will lead you to believe that it's a meaningless illusion, that it's a trap, that it's horrible, that all sorts of distorted views and paradigms. And the third part, without clinging to it, and that's the part I really want to focus on today, is yes, life from the Vedic perspective is sacred. Yes, it's beautiful. And it hurts. Let's face it. That's the first noble truth of Buddhism. Life is fraught with dukkha. Dukkha meaning dissatisfaction. And that dissatisfaction can be a stubbed toe all the way up to a psychotic break. That there's a lot of dukkha, pain, tension, dissatisfaction in life. So what to do about that? Well, there's a variety of spiritual paths. I'm not here to push a particular path, but this idea of learning how to not cling is essential. And as someone who has suffered deeply, and Neo-Advaita being a big part, if not the main part, that led me to suffer so deeply, I need to learn that middle way of finding healthy ways to enjoy life, but also focusing on a traditional and healthy path that teaches me how not to cling to life, because that just creates more suffering. So traditional Advaita Vedanta teaches that in a healthy way. Traditional Theravada Buddhism, all forms of Buddhism, I won't say all, but most forms of Buddhism teach that in a healthy way. You know, the Buddha taught what's called the middle way. He said, in between wild hedonism, I'm paraphrasing, but in between wild hedonism and in between intense asceticism is the middle way, and that's what he taught. So Neo-Advaita took me, and I've met many other people who it took me so low, like devastated me over and over and over and over. And so to recover from that devastation, I not only need to learn how to enjoy life, but I also need to have a path that is focused on liberation, that is focused on the end of suffering. Neo-Advaita says that's what it does, but it actually increases suffering. So there's many such paths. So for those who are drawn to it, there's traditional Advaita Vedanta, and I've listed on my website many traditional Advaita Vedanta teachers and resources. There's also, I've talked about qualified non-duality, which is based on the practice and process of surrendering to God. In the West, we have the 12-step program, which is based on the process of surrendering to God, staying connected to God, and doing service. It's actually very, very similar to qualified non-duality. And then there's also Buddhism, which is based on, again, the middle way of not going into an extreme asceticism, but contemplating and learning about the nature of suffering, and that suffering is caused by clinging, by attachment. So for myself, and I believe for anyone who really went far down the Neo-Advaita hole, I know that I need to have a traditional spiritual path that has that wisdom of teaching how to not cling, how to overcome. The Buddhist word is tanha, which means thirst or grasping or clinging, or this kind. Attachment and aversion is tricky because there's this Western concept of healthy attachment, but clinging is a good way to say it. To overcome that, and in traditional Advaita Vedanta, the things I'm speaking of are considered the foundation before self-inquiry, before focusing on consciousness. So that's my thought for today. Is that's really my path now, is to find that middle way of learning how to enjoy the sacred process of life while simultaneously cultivating finding freedom from tanha, finding freedom from that clinging and pushing away. The Buddha taught that that's the root cause of our suffering. And from there, then it's so interesting studying traditional Buddhist philosophy, specifically Theravada Buddhist philosophy. It's almost as if the Buddha anticipated Neo-Advaita, because not many, but he very specifically talks about many of the delusions of Neo-Advaita and how they actually will lead to more suffering. But one of the essential teachings of you could say early Buddhism or historical Buddhism, called Theravada Buddhism, is that this clinging and this pushing away is the primary cause of suffering, and it actually leads to the creation of an incorrect identity, an incorrect view of what we are. So that's my inspiration for this morning. I felt so excited to share. Hope it touches some of you. And I wish you a blessed, blessed day. Take care and big love.